got this new book called Julia Child. It's when Julia Child was a child. Do you want to read it? Okay. There she is. When Julia was very little, she had a splendid meal of sole meunière. And that was that. Julia fell in love with French food. She loved to eat French food. And she especially loved to cook it. Here's her fridge. She's cooking muffins and croissants. On weekends, she and her friend Simka would shop at the market and gather new ideas and recipes. What do you have? I have a piece of cheese. I have a pear. Back home in the kitchen, things didn't always turn out quite the way they expected. Oh no. Or hoped. Oh, I burnt the fish. But together, they took cooking and baking classes and practiced and learned a few tricks. Look at them chopping those onions. Like many good friends, Julia and Simka sometimes disagreed about little things, but they never disagreed about the larger things. When they dreamt of the future, they always pictured themselves cooking happily together, the oldest children in the world. Life was busy and filled with far too many grown-ups who did not know how to have a marvelous time. The girls had no wish to become big, busy people, wary and worried, hectic and hurried. One day, Julia and Simka had an idea of how to fix things for themselves and the grown-ups they knew. They would make recipes for growing young. Each day for a week, they worked on their dishes. They cooked extra slowly to bring out the flavors. They used delicate spices so that worries would disappear and wonders would rise to the surface. And when they were ready, they set a beautiful table, making sure the flowers were fresh and all the cups were full. And as the savory scent of cooking wafted through the big streets, a curious crowd began to gather. Soon all sorts of busy people wanted a place at the table. Oh my! And what a table it was! Fluffy clouds of cheese soufflé, perfect loaves of crusty baguette, a golden compote of fresh peaches, sweet as summer sunlight. At first the room was very quiet as the grown-ups nibbled and sampled, and then the room began to fill with sounds. A shriek of laughter, a shout of delight. All those big, busy people who were weighed down with worries, they couldn't remember the last time they'd climbed a tree or even rode a bicycle. Well, they began to have a marvelous, rowdy, childlike time. But then things got not so marvelous. As they ate, the grown-ups began to argue. It seemed they were very hungry, too hungry. They were hungry for the fun they had forgotten about and the games they no longer played. They grabbed the food all at once, and they were fearful that it wouldn't last. Look, she's putting some in her purse. Just look at them, said Julia. Where did we go wrong? I think the problem is not that the world is filled with too many grown-ups, said Simka. The problem is that too many grown-ups don't have the proper ingredients for a fun life. So they went to their kitchen, and for the last recipe, the two friends fixed a few things, adding a pinch of this and a dash of that. They made smaller portions, not too little, not too big, just enough to feed the sensible children from whom these senseless grown-ups grew. The room fell quiet. Chocolate almond cupcakes with chocolate butter, icing, and the richest, creamiest centers were served. Each morsel was so delicious. There's plenty for all of us, announced Julia, so the grown-ups would get over their feelings of never-enoughness. And it worked. And this time, when they ate the cakes, they were a little less beastly and a little more generous. Well, sort of. The truth is, grown-ups often need a little extra help. Baffled and befuddled, mindless and muddled, they sometimes forget what they know. So Julia and Simka made a cookbook to remind them. It's called Mastering the Art of Childhood by us. The end.